back to another edition of the Kickstarter Weekly. This week's episode is going to be looking at campaigns that are completing their funding between February the 6th and the 12th. Now, I have 3 campaigns that I'm going to cover today, and then I have nothing that I personally pledged from last week's video. I also have no new arrivals, no new acquisitions. And in the played games section, nothing is new. So I'll be going through that section pretty quickly, just updating some scores. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about a couple things that are on the immediate horizon, including a live stream with Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules, where I teach him Wingspan because he's never played it before, and we play it. And I actually have an idea for something more that I'd like to do with that video. So I need to talk to Paul about that eventually, but I'll just talk about that also at the end of this video in case he's watching. And also a review that's going to be coming up, a specific review, which relates to one of the played games. Other than that, as people who've been watching my channel regularly know that there's a lot of content coming up down the horizon as I expand this channel and grow it over the next year, including more teach and review videos that look better with better camera equipment, videos that do a deeper dive into mechanics of games, as well as the live streaming of games and a Patreon. So all of that stuff is coming, but for right now, the best way to support the channel is simply to like and subscribe. And thank you very much for your support. That said, let's get moving on to the 3 campaigns I'll be covering this week, because 2 of them are pretty big campaigns. They have a lot of information download. There's kind of a big info dump with a couple of these campaigns. One of them is by Simon, so that makes sense. They have a lot of things going on in their campaigns, so let's just get started. The first campaign of the week is called Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum. This campaign is over at Gamefound, and it had a minimum required funding goal of $55,000. They're currently at $656,000, which is about 12 times that minimum required funding goal. Now, this campaign is going to complete its funding on Tuesday, February the 7th. This is a game for 1 to 5 players. Sessions play in about 30 minutes, so it's fairly fast. The complexity in the game appears to be medium light, and we're going to set the risk associated with this campaign at high because this is a fairly new publisher. Now, in terms of what the game is and what it's doing, they're listing it as a dungeon crawler that functions mainly on action points. It looks very similar to Batman Gotham City Chronicles, but that game has a lot more going on mechanically, a lot more to it. It's also a heavier game. So it's kind of a lighter version of that by a different publisher, and I'd say on the other end it probably has a lot in common with Marvel United, which is also one of the campaigns that I'm going to be covering this week, Marvel United Multiverse. Now, this Batman campaign is by a newer publisher, and what it's doing that makes it a little bit different than other games is that it's generally the villains who are the playable characters. So you're going to be playing teams of villains and fighting against different bosses. The main boss in the core box is Batman, and your adventure will be taking place at Arkham Asylum. But it does seem to be taking a page from Simon and from Gotham City Chronicles, and there are a lot of expansions, a lot of add-ons with lots of different miniatures that you can add into your game for more variability. Maybe too many, maybe more than you'll ever need. And I'll go through all that later in this video, but it's essentially a Batman-themed dungeon crawler, very loosely called the dungeon crawler, with action points that focuses on the villains. Now, it's been co-designed by Jose M. Caballero Delso and Sergio Garcia Vicente. For both of them, this is their first published game. It has art by Juan Garcia and also by Israel Pato, who previously worked on Day Night Z, Harikiri, Blades of Honor, and No Time for Heroes. And the publisher here is Night Games, who previously have only published one game, Harry Potter Catch the Snitch. So I think that's something you want to remember while you're looking at this campaign, whatever your thoughts are of it, is that the publisher is fairly untested. The designers haven't designed anything that's been published before. It's got a lot of cool miniatures, and it looks like it could be a pretty good game. And I like the idea of being able to play all these villains and the sort of heroes of the Batman universe being the bosses. But there is a big question mark hanging over a lot of this, I think, because it's by 2 new designers and a relatively new publisher. Now, for $137, you can pledge the Henchmen pledge. That's going to get you the core game and the stretch goal box. For $202, you can pledge at the Supervillain pledge level, which is going to add in the Riot in Blackgate expansion. I'll talk about all the various expansions, what's included in them at the end when I go over them as add-ons. So as I'm going through these pledges, you're hearing about certain expansions, you're not sure what's in those, just hang out, keep listening. We'll get to that in the add-on section. The next pledge level up is $295. It's the Mastermind pledge, and that's going to add on another expansion called Quest at Arkham Asylum. And there's a 4th pledge I'm about to talk about. These pledges are kind of side by side. So they both include Quest at Arkham Asylum, but one of the pledge levels includes a bunch more expansions, and the other one includes some kind of quality of play upgrades. So they kind of sit side by side in my mind. With this pledge level, you'll also be getting an Arkham Asylum dice tower, the Joker dice set, a special dice set, and card sleeves. For $394, the Commander pledge level, you'll still be getting that Quests at Arkham Asylum expansion. And with both of these, you'll get everything that comes in the previous pledge levels. However, with this one, you won't be getting any of the dice sets, you won't get the dice tower, you won't get the card sleeve pack. You will, however, get 3 more expansions in addition to Quest at Arkham Asylum. They are Heirs of the Cowl, Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins, and Suicide Squad Assault at Arkham Asylum. For $470, the Gotham Lord All-In, you'll basically get everything that's included in those 2 previous pledge levels. You'll only be getting 1 copy of Quest at Arkham Asylum, but you'll be getting all of the other expansions, and you'll be getting all of the dice sets, the sleeves, and the dice tower. So let's talk about what comes in all of these various boxes and expansions and things like that. In the original core game, you're going to get 5 different bosses that you can play against. There's Batman, Aaron Cash, Hugo Strange, Victor Zsasz, and Killer Croc. So not all of them are typically heroes, but they're going to be adversaries that your teams of villains will be fighting against. And the villains, the one that you're playing as, that come in the base game are the Joker, Harley Quinn, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, the Penguin, and Bane. And the stretch goals that have been unlocked also throw in the Batman Who Laughs, Kite Man, the Eraser, Rorschach, Jervis Tetch, better known as the Mad Hatter, the Riddler, Clayface and Hugo Strange, who come together as one character, Professor Pig, Man-Bat, Hush, Condiment King, Talon, William Cobb, Polka Dot Man, Mr. Freeze, and the Batman Returns version of Catwoman. So Catwoman actually comes in one of the expansions, but they've made it a stretch goal to have the Batman Returns version of her in this. And there's also a stretch goal for her to have player components. So she'll still be completely playable, even if you only have this alternate version of her. Now, there are 70 figures in the base game. Some of those are other alternate sculpts of characters, alternate skins, they call them in this campaign. And some of them are kind of generic figures, just minions that you'll find around. Also in the stretch box, you get an additional boss that you can go up against, and that is Commissioner Gordon. Now, Riot in Blackgate, which comes at the 2nd pledge level, it can also be added on for $77. That's going to give you Nightwing as a new boss that you can go up against. And the villains in that expansion include Deathstroke, Deadshot, Catwoman, Lady Shiva, Black Mask, and Ratcatcher. Now for $44, you can add on Quest at Arkham Asylum. This is the one that comes in either of the 3rd or 4th level pledges, the one with all of the extra expansions and the one with like the dice and the dice tower and the card sleeves. Now this is a 1-player campaign, and you're going to get Alfred the Butler as a figure, but I believe he's just there sort of as a companion to Batman to help him out. This expansion is essentially a 1-player campaign. Although if you get some of the later expansions, you'll be able to do other things with this expansion, including playing it in multiplayer cooperative mode. For $44, you can add on the Heirs of the Cowl expansion. That's going to include Red Robin, the Damian Wayne version of Robin, Huntress, Batgirl, Red Hand, and Orphan. Now, this expansion will allow you to do 3 different things with any and all of these characters. You can use them as alternate bosses in the original core game. You can use them as alternate characters to solo with in Quest at Arkham Asylum. You can also use them together to play multiplayer cooperative in Quest at Arkham Asylum. You'll actually be able to play that expansion as a team using any combination of these characters and the characters from the original core game. Now for $49, you can add on Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins. You're only going to get 2 new characters with this expansion, Talia al Ghul and Ra's al Ghul, but you'll be able to use them in this expansion with their own escape plan, and you'll also be able to use them as playable villains in the core game. For $66, you can add on Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham Asylum. This is going to add in a new extraction game mode. So you can pick out any of the villains, and you'll essentially be trying to rescue them from Arkham Asylum using the Suicide Squad characters. Now that's going to include Captain Boomerang, King Shark, Katana, Nocturna, Bronze Tiger, Peacemaker, and Thinker. From there, we have some Gamefound exclusives. These are kind of quality of play upgrades that won't be available at retail. For $16, there's a special League of Assassins dice set. Also for $16, there is the Joker dice set. And for $16, there is the special dice set. And that one's kind of glittery dice. And remember, those 2 dice sets, the special dice set and the Joker dice set, are going to come in the Mastermind pledge level and in the Gotham Lord All-In. As an add-on, the Arkham Asylum Dice Tower is $11, and as an add-on, the card sleeve pack is $13. There's also a couple of alternate patient skin characters. These will also be Gamefound exclusives. So one of them is only available as an add-on. That is Bane. He is $8, the Bane Patient Skin. The other one is $22. That is called the Patient Skin Set, and that features alternate sculpts of the Joker, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, and Two-Face as patients. However, that set goes free to anyone who pledged for this in the first 24 hours that the campaign was live. So if you pledged then, if you were following, if you pledged immediately upon launch of this, you'll already be getting this one for free. But if you came in late and you still want it, you can add it on for $22. Now in the continental US, there are 3 different shipping estimates of $27, $43, and $54. The first shipping estimate is for the first 2 pledges. The second shipping estimate, the $43, is for the Mastermind pledge. That's the one that comes with the extra dice and the card sleeves. So there's not as much added on to that as there is on to the final 2 pledges, the ones that have all the extra expansions. Those 2 pledges, those are the ones that are going to be getting the $54 estimate. And again, that is in the continental US. Now, Night Games is saying that they hope to deliver this in the second quarter of 2024. So I would pencil that in as June 2024. I always just go right to the end. So I'm not surprised. You'd rather be pleasantly surprised if it comes a little early rather than assuming the best case scenario and having it ship late. However, they even caveat that in the Kickstarter, saying they may not make Q2 2024. That's just their hopeful estimate. So even that June 2024 is something that could be pushed back quite a bit. And I watch a lot of campaigns. A lot of campaigns have had significant delays, more than ever over the last couple of years after everything that happened in the pandemic and the way that it affected global shipping. So I would even take that June 2024 as a very hopeful penciled in date and expect that it could easily be delivered 3-6 months even later than that. Our second campaign for the video is Marvel United Multiverse. Now this one had a minimum required funding goal of $200,000. They're currently at $2.8 million, which is the biggest pot o' money of the week. And they have a multiplier of 14 times, which is also the biggest multiplier of the week. And I think that really says something for CMON when they're putting out campaigns that have such high minimum funding goals in the hundreds of thousands, and they're still, making 14 times that. They're not underestimating it like other campaigns might be, and the fact that they're so successful, I think, speaks to how popular they still are. I think if, like some other companies, they were setting a minimum goal of $200,000 and then they were just barely making that to fund, or maybe, making $250,000 or $300,000, that might show that the appeal of CMON is waning to some degree, but this is quite the opposite. They're doing huge amounts of business. Now, this campaign is going to complete its funding on Wednesday, February the 8th. The player count on this is 1 to 5 players. Sessions play in about 40 minutes. Complexity on the game is light, and we're going to set the risk associated with this campaign at low. Now, this is a cooperative game. It features hand management. It uses a modular board, and there's variable player powers. We're going to get into all of the volume of characters that come with this thing, but I think something to be aware of, and I'll go over this as we get into it, including kind of money totals and what you could be in for, and maybe what you could be in for shipping. But I think the thing to remember as we're starting to look at this campaign is that this isn't a dungeon crawler with a big epic storyline. This isn't a campaign game with a big storyline. This is a game of very light complexity with a huge, vast number of characters available. If you were to back everything in this, I think you get hundreds of characters. And the question I think to ask yourself when you're backing something like this is that if you're playing a mechanically light game, how often are you going to get that to the table? Would you get that to the table enough to even play through all of those characters once? Because I know as a comics nerd and a completist, that side of me would just want to go in and back it for everything. And I would be thinking about all the characters that I wasn't getting if I wasn't backing it for everything. But for me, I know if I'm playing like a story-based game, there's more to that for me to kind of want to go deep into it and get everything and go all the way through it. If I'm playing just a very mechanically simple game, am I going to want to be playing through that mechanically simple game hundreds of times just to get through every character once or twice? So I think that's the question to ask for yourself. And maybe the best thing to do is to get a smaller pledge, throw in 1 or 2 boxes, and get even that could be dozens of characters, but get a good sampling of characters that are really what you want, because even that is going to get you so much gameplay, you may not need more than that. They offer a lot in these campaigns. And the more I look at these campaigns, the more I think that they offer that so that people will have a lot to choose from. So that different people out there can choose different boxes and get the characters that they really like, or the sort of smaller, niche corners of the Marvel universe, the ones that really appeal to them. I don't know if they really expect everybody to go all in and get everything. Normally going all in and making that commitment to something that is a lifestyle game, people usually do that if there's a lot of story involved or if it's a heavier game. The question here is if you're playing a lighter game and you're playing it casually, with friends, a beer and pretzels type game, maybe with your kids, do you need all of those boxes and all of that content? And I'm just kind of thinking aloud about this at the top of this, because you could go into this for hundreds, almost $1,000. Do you want to do that with this kind of game? So it's just something to think about before you let yourself get carried away when you're pledging. So it's been co-designed by Andrea Chiaravezio, who's co-designed Arborea, Kingsburg, the original Marvel United X-Men, and Signoria, along with Eric Lang, who's probably best known for Ankh, Gods of Egypt, Blood Rage, Chaos in the Old World, Cthulhu Death May Die, and Rising Sun. The artist is Edouard Guitan, and something to be aware of is that in the Batman game, for instance, those character sculpts are more comic book based, sort of realistic in the sense that comics are realistic. These are chibi characters, so they're more cartoony. And Edouard Guiton has previously worked on the other games in the series, Marvel United X-Men. He's also worked on Zombicide, Zombicide 2nd Edition, and Zombicide Season 2, Prison Outbreak. And the game's being published by Simon Global Limited. They're probably best known for Blood Rage, Cthulhu Death May Die, Modern Art, Rising Sun, and Zombicide Black Plague. Those are their 5 games that are the highest on Board Game Geek. So for $65, you can pledge the Multiverse pledge. That's going to get you the core game, the core Multiverse game, also the exclusive Wrecking Crew villain team. So you'll be able to use these guys as villains that you're fighting against, but when you do that, you'll be fighting against all 4 figures as one. So it's kind of one villain with 4 parts, 4 different characters, 4 different miniatures as well. If you pledge at $100, which is the Herald pledge, you'll also be getting the Coming of Galactus expansion, and we'll talk about that in the add-ons, and an exclusive Iron Lad hero. Now, if you know Marvel United at all, you know that there are heroes, there are anti-heroes who can be played as heroes or villains, and then there's villains. In the core box of Marvel United Multiverse, the heroes that you're going to be getting include Captain Carter, Loki, the Shuri version of Black Panther, Spider-Man 2099, Mighty Thor, and that's sort of the Lady Thor version, the one that Natalie Portman played in the movie, and Ironheart. And the anti-hero that you're going to be getting is Cosmic Ghost Rider, so he can be played as either a hero or a villain. The villains in this box include Immortus, Maestro, and Emperor Doom. Of course, if you pledge here, you're still going to be getting the Wrecking Crew. They work together as a team villain, and they include Wrecker, Pile Driver, Bulldozer, and Thunderball. Now, the stretch goals that you'll be getting, and this is the reason when people want to pledge this as a Kickstarter, this is the reason why. Because the number of extra figures that you get at stretch goals is ridiculous. And if you were to buy this at retail, you would just get the characters that I already mentioned. Even the Wrecking Crew, that's like a little separate exclusive. But all of these stretch goals, none of these will be in the retail version. So if you really like this, and you want to have a really variable version of the game with all of these extra characters, Kickstarter is the place to do that. Now, the heroes that you'll be getting as stretch goals, just through this core pledge, include Corsair, Black Knight, Chad, Songbird, Hepzibah, Cyborg Spider-Man, Patriot, Raza, M, Cypher, Chamber, Captain Britain, the Betsy Braddock version, Speed, Aurora, Husk, Lilandra, Havoc, Elsa Bloodstone, Kid Loki, Wiccan, Siren, Captain America, the Sam Wilson version, Wong, Megan, Deathlock, and Ghost Rider, the Johnny Blaze version. The anti-heroes that you'll get as stretch goals include Dakin, Darkchild, US Agent, Darkstar, Red Hulk, Ursa Major, and Red Guardian. And then the villains that you'll be getting as stretch goals include Claw, Chameleon, Titania, Absorbing Man, Abomination, Crimson Dynamo, Maximus, Crossbones, Iron Patriot, Blastar, Hobgoblin, High Evolutionary, and Enchantress. Now, if you get that Herald Pledge level, the one that includes Fantastic Four, the Coming of Galactus, you're going to get a Galactus statue that's much bigger than the other figures in the game. He stands 23 centimeters tall, he's about 12.5 centimeters wide, and the other figures are usually 4 centimeters tall and 3 centimeters wide. Now, for us Westerners, that means that most of the miniatures in the game stand about 1.5 inches, whereas Galactus is going to stand 9 inches. So he is 6 times as tall as the normal miniatures in the game. You'll also be getting 4 villains with that Galactus pledge, the Herald pledge, Airwalker, Firelord, Nova, the Frankie Ray version, and Terrax. And of course, you'll be getting the Iron Lad hero, an additional hero, only at that pledge level. So you won't get him at the first pledge level. Now, in addition to that, there are many additional boxes that you can get as add-ons. So at this point in time, and they do a lot of things very late in the game, so it's possible they could bundle these together, but at this point in time, CMON is not offering anything between the first 2 pledge levels. So all of the boxes that I'm about to talk about and go through the various characters that you can get through them, these are only available as add-ons. That also means when you look at their shipping estimate that's on their page, they're not accounting for all of these extra boxes. So when we get to the end, and I'll go over this then, they're going to give you 2 shipping estimates, and they're $16 apart. So that increased $16 pledge level is only going from one pledge to the other. But if we think to ourselves that that increased pledge level includes a $16 bump for one box, then we have to ask if each additional box is also going to bump up your shipping another $16. I just want people to be aware of this, so if they pledge for a lot of extra boxes, they're not surprised later when their shipping comes back at a very high amount. It probably will. So the first of the boxes that you can add on for $40 is Civil War, and it's going to include the heroes Wonder Man, Spectrum, Captain America, Thor, Tigra, Goliath, Kate Bishop, and Yellow Jacket. And the Goliath figure looks bigger than the others. He looks maybe 3 times bigger than the others, which means he'd probably be a third the size of Galactus. The height may be a little variable, but that's just what it looks like to my eye. Now, this expansion will be available at retail. However, there are 2 exclusive characters that won't be available at retail. They'll only be available through this Kickstarter, and that is Hulkling and Iron Spider. So if you buy this expansion now through this Kickstarter, you'll get those 2 heroes with everything else. If you see it later at retail, it won't include those 2 heroes. For $35, you can add on Maximum Carnage. That's going to include the anti-hero of Morbius and a challenge character of Dark Venom. There are also 5 villains in that box: Demogoblin, Scorpion, Scream, Shriek, and Doppelganger. For $35, you can add on the Secret Invasion box. That's going to include some new heroes. You've got Nick Fury Sr., who's the old Nick Fury from the comics, the white guy, so not Sam Jackson. Maria Hill, Ronin, and Quake, and then you've got 5 villains, Queen Berenice, and then you've got Skrulls 1 through 4, so it's 4 different Skrull sculpts. For $35, the War of Kings box will include the villain Vulcan, the anti-hero Gladiator, and then heroes who are Inhumans. So you've got Black Bolt, Medusa, Crystal, Lockjaw, Gorgon, Karnak, and Triton. For $35, the Age of Apocalypse box is going to come with such heroes as X-Man, Morph, Magneto, the version from Age of Apocalypse, 1 figure that is Sabretooth and Wild Child together, and then you've got 3 villains. You've got Apocalypse, the Age of Apocalypse version, Dark Beast, and Nemesis. The final box is $30. It's called Annihilation. That's going to get you the heroes Nova Prime, Phyla-Vell, Quasar, and Moondragon, and the villain Annihilus. You'll also be able to add on, for $30, a Multiverse playmat. For $30, you can also add on Multiverse cardboard locations, which will essentially be upgrades from the card stock in the base game versions. You'll also be able to add on, for $30, cardboard villain dashboards, which will again be upgrades from the cardstock versions that you'll find elsewhere. For $20, you can add in the pet companions. So that's going to include Alligator Loki, Cosmo, Throg, Redwing, Goose, and Jeff. And how these will work: if you play with one of these companions, you'll put their cards, there's 3 of them, into your deck. You'll also get a little miniature, and then those cards may come up as you play. You'll have like a little companion that's working with you. For $15, you can add on team decks. That's going to be 15 different teams, 90 cards total. I think there's like 6 cards in each team. And the way this works, it kind of gives you a little challenge. So you'll put these into your game, and then instead of taking a turn, you can flip one of these team cards, and you'll do whatever's on the team card. So it's giving you additional little challenges and things that you're going to be doing as you're playing the game, and you'll activate that instead of taking one of your turns. For $15, you can also get the promo team decks. That's another set. That's 15 more team decks, 92 cards total in those. For $15, you can also add on campaign decks. There are 8 of these. 114 cards in total. They'll work much the same way as the team decks. Instead of having little challenges that you need to do, it's more like story elements that you'll be getting as you flip through these decks. Finally, for $20, you can add on Multiverse plastic tokens. There are 100 of these, and they're kind of engraved, and they replace the cardboard tokens that you'll find in the base game. Now, if you were to get all of these things, in addition to the Herald Pledge, you'd be up at $485 right now. That includes all of the expansions and all of those decks and tokens, all of those kind of quality of play upgrades. But it's a significant number when you're looking at the pledges, and the two pledges that you see are $60 and $100. So there's definitely the ability to spend a lot more money than what you first see on the page. And we're not even done yet, because now there are some add-ons that you can get from previous campaigns. So this is the third Marvel United campaign. The first one was just called Marvel United. It was more the base normal heroes. Then they did a second campaign focusing on the X-Men. And now we have this one, sort of multiverse type characters. So they've made a couple sets available from the first two campaigns. Not everything, just a few specific things. We're going to go over what those are, but I'm not going to go through all the characters in detail. If you want to see all of the characters that are available there, you'll have to go back and look at those campaigns. I just think I've done enough of a laundry list as it is. And I think the people who probably want the characters that are in this already know what they are. So first of all, for $40, you can get plastic tokens from the original game. So these would replace the cardboard tokens in the original game. There are 258 of these, so more than the newer ones. And these also will look kind of engraved. Then we've got a couple of promo packs. So for $120, you can add on the United promos. These are all of the stretch goal characters from the very first campaign. So these are the characters that if people have been picking this up at retail, these are the characters they haven't been able to get. Now, there are 35 different heroes in this, 11 different villains, and that also includes Yondu and Adam Warlock. Those were a couple of exclusive characters that came in some of the expansions in the first campaign. So they're adding them in along with all of the stretch goal characters. So this would be a good way if you had stuff from the first campaign that you got at retail, but you're missing all of the stretch goal characters, you can kind of just get them all here and now. They're not going to be available at retail, so this is the best way to do that if you're looking to fill out your collection. They've also done a similar thing for Marvel United X-Men. So for $120, you can get the mutant promos. That's going to include 36 heroes, 5 anti-heroes, and 17 villains. And again, that's going to include 2 characters from some of the expansions of that campaign that were exclusive and are not available when you find those expansions at retail. These are characters that people are looking for. It is the Mohawk version of Storm and Old Man Logan. For $220, you can get the Classic Promos bundle. So that's going to take both of those stretch goals packs and bundle them together. It'll save you $20 over pledging each of them separately. And then they have 2 expansions available that were exclusive expansions, one from each of the previous campaigns. So from the original campaign, you've got Return of the Sinister Six, that's $45. And then from the X-Men campaign, you've got Fantastic Four, that's also $45 as an add-on. Unfortunately, all of the other expansions that were available through those various campaigns, as of now, as of the time that I'm filming this on Sunday, just a few days before this campaign ends, none of those other expansions are available through this campaign. Some of them you can find at retail, some of them you can't. So that means from the first campaign, you can't get the original core box through this campaign, or Rise of the Black Panther, or Tales of Asgard, or Guardians of the Galaxy Remix, or Enter the Spider-Verse, or Infinity Gauntlet. And Infinity Gauntlet was an exclusive, so there is no way to get that at retail, and it's not being offered through this campaign. From the second campaign, these are all the things they're not offering. No core box from that campaign, no gold team, no blue team, no Deadpool. All of those you can find at retail, but these next ones are not. They were only available through that Kickstarter. They're exclusive, and they're not being offered here. So again, you will continue to not be able to find these expansions. First Class, The Horsemen of Apocalypse, Phoenix 5, X-Force, and Days of Future Past. Just to give you an idea of what you can get through this campaign, what you can hopefully find at retail. If you want to buy those things at retail, you can get the stretch goals like we talked about through this campaign, all those additional stretch goal characters. But all the ones that I just mentioned from the first 2 campaigns, it was Infinity Gauntlet from the first campaign and like 4 or 5 things from the second campaign, the X-Men campaign. Those you probably won't be able to find anywhere except on the secondhand market with jacked up prices. Now, in the continental US, they are estimating shipping at $44 and $50, but remember that is for the core pledge and the Herald pledge. So if I were you and I was buying a lot of additional add-on boxes, I would guesstimate you may end up paying an additional $16 per box on top of those shipping estimates. Now, if you're getting everything that's new in this campaign, so all of those additional games, but you're not getting like the stretch goal stuff from the first campaign, now just to give you an idea here of the amount that this could get to, if you are pledging the Herald pledge level and you're getting all of the new stuff, all of those expansions that are available for the first time here, and I'm not even factoring in all of the packs and the pet companions and token upgrades and stuff like that. But if you're getting all of that stuff, I'm just starting with that total for everything that's new in this campaign, which we added up, it was $485. My guess is that the shipping may bring that total to around $597 in the continental US. So I just want you to have an idea of what that total could be when you're pledging. Finally, CMON is estimating that this campaign will be delivered in March 2024. Again, that is a year off, so not March in a month from now, but March a year and a month from now. The final campaign of this video takes a big shift away from superheroes and a million expansions with all of this glut. The third campaign is called Arborea. The minimum funding goal for this campaign was $15,000. They're currently at $156,000, which is about 10.5 times that minimum required funding goal. Arborea is going to complete its funding on Thursday, February 9th. This is a game for 1 to 5 players that plays in about 90 to 120 minutes. Complexity on this game is heavy, and we're going to set the risk associated with this campaign at medium-low. Now, this is a tile placement game and a worker placement game. It features animals in a fantasy setting, and there's a market involved in the game. It's by a first-time designer, Danny Garcia. The artist here is Javi Gonzalez Cava. He's worked on Caverna the Cave Farmers, Cooper Island, and Watson and Holmes. And the publisher is Alley Cat Games. They're probably best known for Chocolate Factory, Dice Hospital, and Paper Dungeons, a dungeon scrawler game. There's not a lot of pledge levels for this one. There's not a lot of add-ons. For $46, you can pledge the base game pledge. That's just going to get you the retail version of Arborea. Now, they've said that this will be delivered before the game is out there in the wild in retail. So basically, if you pledge it here, you're getting it first. Now, I'm sure they intend to make good on that. However, caveat, I have seen many Kickstarter campaigns with everything that's going on globally with shipping run late and the games get to retail first. Now, usually when that happens, the publisher will say, hey, there's factors beyond our control. They'll be doing this in the comments section and the updates and say, are you guys okay with the fact that this game may end up getting to retail first? And I'm only mentioning this because this has happened when other publishers have said the game will go to backers first. At that point, backers are usually pretty cool about it because they just want the company to survive and do well, and they say, yeah, it's okay. We don't mind. However, if you're one of those people who would mind, you may be one of those couple people who's in the minority, and they may not delay those games going to retail just because of your dissenting voice. So their intention is completely to get this to the backers first. Just be aware there is a possibility that could not end up happening. Now, the other reason, perhaps the better reason to pledge this through Kickstarter is to pledge at the $56 Kickstarter exclusive pledge level. That's going to come with some component upgrades. Largely, that's some tokens that have been upgraded to wooden tokens, some additional stretch goals and cards and things, and also the Midnight River expansion. So that's an expansion built into the Kickstarter version. You won't be seeing that in the retail copies. Now, in the continental US, shipping has been estimated at $13. That's for either version of the game. And Alley Cat Games is planning on delivering Arborea in October of 2023. Now, as I mentioned at the top of this video, I did not personally pledge anything from last week. Wiz War is something that I just wanted to mention to people for its historical value, and also because the last published version was from 2012. So if there are people out there who want the game, this would be their best opportunity to get it. But it wasn't really something that I was interested in. I think gaming has kind of gone way past that at this point in time. The other two games were interesting to me. Among Cultists, which is a social deduction game, kind of hidden roles. I just don't play a lot of those games, and it was interesting to me, but it's not a game that I would buy or bring into my collection. I'm curious. I might play it sometime. I think for that genre, it's certainly a game that I'm interested in playing the most, but it just wasn't something that I was going to back when I'm trying to back fewer games. The other game, Once Upon a Line, had this interesting gameplay where you were scratching off boards and revealing letters, and it's kind of story-based. And that also I found very interesting. It's something I'd be really curious to play, although I think that would be hard to do if you didn't own a copy, because it is a campaign game, and you are kind of destroying it as you're playing it, so much so that there's a reset pack if you want to play through it again. So I think that would be a hard game to just go out and find in the wild and play once. I would be curious to play it though, but again, it's not a game that I felt compelled to back. I just have so many games, and the games that I'm trying to back, I'm trying to scale back. So I ended up not personally backing any of those three games from last week. I also don't have any new acquisitions this period. I'm recording this video fairly quickly after the last video, so nothing new has come in that period. I had a website crash last week, and I lost about 2 days trying to get the website back up. It's called thinkoutsideTheBoard.com. Every day I do a post called Previously on Kickstarter. It's sort of a roundup post of everything that's launched the day before on Kickstarter, Gamefound, BackerKit, very occasionally when there's something on BackerKit. That's a really good resource, I think, because that way you don't have to search through the glut of crowdfunding options. You can just go there and check it out. I spend a couple hours every day updating that site, depending on the day, depending on how many projects there are. On Wednesday, when I'm reporting on Tuesday's post, Tuesday's the game that everything pretty much launches. So I can be spending several hours, many hours working on it then. Other days when there's only, a project or two or three, I can probably do it in a half an hour. But I do work on it every day. I do keep it updated every day. I also post my videos there as well as on YouTube when I do the videos. So when that site went down, it took about 48 hours working on it to get it back up, and I kind of pushed back all of my schedule. So I am unfortunately filming this on Sunday night later than I'd like to, and we have something going on tomorrow with friends. It's been planned for weeks. I can't really cancel it, which means I may not get this posted until Monday or even Tuesday, which is much later than I'd like. But just know, if this video runs late this week, videos in the future should not. I should be publishing in the future on the weekends, and I want to do that so that you all can see these videos on the weekend and then have a little more time to be reviewing the campaigns, so you're not kind of seeing this video and you're right up against the campaign. It's possible that this video could be getting published very close to the completion of the Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum campaign, so my apologies for that, and I don't think it's something that will be repeated in future weeks as these videos do come out over the weekend. I'm going to run through the played games very quickly. There's several of these games that I think the scores may go up in the future, so I'll make note of that on those specific games. And then when I'm done, I'm going to talk about two things very quickly, but there won't be a lot of time spent on this section because all of the games that I'm talking about, none of them are games that I've played for the first time. So Caper Europe, I played once. I'm continuing to score this one a 7.5. I'm enjoying it a little bit more as I am finding more ways to better strategize for myself. So I think it's possible that score could go up a bit more in the future. I'll probably continue to play this one very occasionally in Arena, but more in tournaments on Board Game Geek. Carnegie, I've played once more, and I have a couple more games kind of currently running. Last week I rated this one an 8.5. I'm really liking this a lot, and I'm seeing the room for strategy and doing different things. So I'm going to increase my score for now to a 9.0 for Carnegie. The Castles of Burgundy I played 5 times this period. This one's staying strong for me at a 9.0. Descent, Legends of the Dark. If you've been following these videos, you know that I was playing a campaign of this. We finished the campaign this last week. I played it once. We played the finale. I started out really wanting to like this game and rating it at like a 9.0, and the more we played it and the more we experienced many problems across many levels, the more my score kept going down. This will probably be my first review that I publish once I get the review videos up and going, and I'm going to be doing this one jointly with my friend Ryan, who played the campaign with me, so that you can get 2 people's opinions. Now, neither one of us ended up liking it in the end, and we both love dungeon crawlers, but we both had a lot of problems with it, a lot of the same problems. And so if you're interested in hearing what more we're going to say, just stay tuned. That review video will probably be out, and it may take a little while, maybe 2 or 3 months down the line. But as a preview, I will tell you that the final score I am resting on with Descent Legends of the Dark is a 3.5. And I almost feel that's being generous. So more to come on that. Great Western Trail, I've played once this period. I recently brought down my score to an 8.0. I plan on playing this one more and exploring more of the strategies, and I've already started to do that, diving a little bit deeper into more of the strategies. And I think as I do that more, it's possible that score could go back up again. The Isle of Cats is staying strong at an 8.0. I think that's probably a solid score for that game at this time. Keyflower, I've played once more, and I'm going to continue to rate that game an 8.0. However, I could see that score going up. I also think with the combination of bidding and the tile placement in that game, it probably plays better physically live in person. But for now, 8.0. Kingdom Builder I've played twice more. This is a game that I probably will only play in tournaments. I'm rating it a 6.5. It's just a very light, simple game, and I don't feel like there's a lot of room for deep strategy in this one. There's a lot of variability because you'll get different cards coming out that determine what your goals are for the game, for the play. But one thing I've noticed specifically with Kingdom Builder is that you have to make very informed and specific choices early on. Like your first 1 or 2 moves will probably determine how well you play for the rest of the game. You want to get to a building right at the beginning that gives you very specific kinds of powers that will help with your placement later in the game. And if you don't do that, you're going to very much be at the mercy of the cards that come out, and you're going to end up having to play in the same area for the whole game, and your scores will be just completely hobbled. So I think there is room for strategy in this one, but I think you need to know what you're doing, and you need to do it early. It's also a very light game, so it appeals to a lighter audience. And it can be deceptive in that way, because if you're not much of a gamer and you're not thinking that much, as some people getting into the hobby may be, they reach for this one first, they may make very substandard moves early on that basically give them the ability to do not much for the rest of the game. Lost Ruins of Arnak is staying consistently strong for me at a 9.0, and Patchwork, which I downgraded recently to a 7.5, I've been playing tournaments of that. I'm getting a little bit more into some of the strategy there, and I'm finding ways to play it a little bit better. So it's possible that could eventually slide back up to an 8.0, but for now I'm keeping it at a 7.5. Railways of the World I've played once more, and I'm going to continue to rate that one at an 8.0. And that's another one, much like Keyflower, that I think probably plays better live and in person. I've played it live a lot. I've also played Age of Steam, and I think I probably enjoy it better that way. Seasons I played twice more, and I'm continuing to rate that game a 9.0. And Terra Mystica I played 4 more times. I'm continuing to rate that game an 8.5. Now, that game is a heavy Euro. There's a lot of strategy involved, and it's another game where I think things you do early on can hugely affect what you can do later. I've been exploring strategies a little bit more. There's a few things I think that are very helpful, so I'm starting to play using some of those strategies, and I think if those are successful for me and they open up the game for me more, my score of 8.5 could go up more, and I could end up eventually rating that game a 9.0 or a 9.5. But for me, for now, keeping Terra Mystica at an 8.5. Finally, Wingspan. I played 4 more times. I'm continuing to rate that game an 8.0. But again, I've been playing it in tournaments, and I am finding ways to strategize a little bit more with Wingspan. I think Wingspan, Patchwork, and Lost Ruins are games that I've played enough through tournaments where I've played just a lot of plays that I'm starting to get really good, and I've honed in on some, I don't want to call it savvy or next level, but some techniques that you might not be aware of even when you've played the game several times. So the more I do that, it's related to kind of like when you take food, how you trigger your player abilities on your birds to affect other people, when you take cards, how you deny cards to your opponents. All of that at a high level will determine who wins, because you get to a certain point where you can't really play it heads down anymore and just deal with your tableau in front of you and play well for that. You reach a certain point when you're playing at a certain level that you need to do things that will eke out a point or two here or there, make smart choices, and deny your opponents the ability to do those kinds of things. And that at a higher level of gameplay will really turn the tide of the game. So for me, I'm keeping Wingspan at an 8.0, but as I explore this more, I think it's possible that my score could go up, and I could feel that the game is less hobbled by some of the randomization of card draw when you're using some of these other strategies. Now, I mentioned at the top of the video, there were 2 things I was going to mention at the end. The one is when I do this video with Paul Grogan at Gaming Rules, when I teach him Wingspan and we play through the game, something that I would like to do is to go over some of these strategies, which I think will help people, give them a leg up on Wingspan. I don't think it's something that I should initially do in the teach, because I think as Paul is playing, just having the normal rules and playing the game once through should be enough. But I think maybe at the end of the video, or if he doesn't want to do it, maybe I'll do it as an additional video on my own. I think I'll probably end up making a video talking about some of these Wingspan, tricks, tips, strategies for players who want to take their game to the next level. So I could do it at the end of the video with Paul and, ooh and ah him, maybe not ooh and ah him, but give him tips for when he plays Wingspan again in the future. Or I could do it as my own video and just put it out there for people to look at it as its own thing. But either way, I think it'll be very helpful for people to have that information. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, again, that review for Descent Legends of the Dark. It'll be coming out in a couple months. If you like dungeon crawlers, if you've been interested in Descent Legends of the Dark, you might want to check it out when it eventually hits. Other than that, play lots of great games. I'll try to do the same, and I'll report back on those games that I played in my next video. As for the campaigns that I'm looking at including in next week's video, they include Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards Annihilageddon 3, Hero Realms Dungeons, Hollywood 1947, Zoo Vadis and Gussie Gorillas, Trolls and Princesses, and Deep Shelf. So it's possible 1 or 2 of those might not end up on the list. It's a little less probable, but possible there could be an extra game thrown in there. But that is likely the 6 games that will appear in next week's video on the currently running campaign section. Until then, have a great time gaming, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.